Hey, what's happening, everybody? Peter Linto back with you. Our next exciting topic, fixed income. So this is going to be a strength for you. A lot of easy points here. It's in all three levels. So let's not only eat up the points in level one, let's set a good foundation for what we'll be doing in levels 2 and 3. All righty, so when we talk about the cash flows, what are we talking about? Principal versus interest, the principal payment versus the interest payment. Remember, if you're the lender, the bondholder, the investor, under US GAAP, when you receive a coupon payment, that's considered operating inflow. When you receive back the principal, that's going to be an investing inflow, okay? From the perspective of the borrower, when you make a principal repayment, that's financing outflow. When you make an interest payment under US GAAP, that's definitely operating outflow. Interest in or out under US GAAP is operating. Under IFRS, when you make an interest payment, be careful. That could be operating outflow like US GAAP or financing outflow. Okay, so cash flow structures, we'll get into all that. What I want to focus your attention on are options for a second. 2 for 1. We're going to see this in derivatives again, but I want to plant the seed here. Okay, so anytime we have an option that is held by the issuer of the debt, the issuer is the borrower. So anytime we have an option held by the issuer, the borrower, that's going to reduce the value of that debt. Okay, so maybe it's going to be callable. Maybe there's a cap on the coupon we're going to pay. Despite the market reference rate going up, now I'm not paying that high. All right, any option that's held by the investor, okay, the bondholder, if anything, that's going to increase the value. Okay, sometimes it's worthless, it's out of the money, but otherwise it'll increase the value of the debt. Maybe it's puttable. Maybe there's a floor on value. I got to get, despite how low that market reference rate goes, the minimum coupon I'm going to receive is X. Maybe we have the right to conversion option, convert that debt to equity. All righty. Now, coupon divided by price. Anything that makes that bond more valuable, that initial yield is going to be lower. So if it's an option held by the investor, the bondholder, makes the bond more valuable, your initial yield is going to be lower, but somehow the risk you're assuming is going to be lower as well. You might have the right to put back that debt if interest rates go up. You don't want to be stuck with that old debt paying that low coupon. Now I've got the right to put that debt back on the issuer, get my money back, and reinvest at today's higher rates. You'll see. Coupon divided by price. Anything that makes the value of that debt lower. The good news is when you buy that, your initial yield, because you're paying less for it, is higher. But the risk assumed is higher. Maybe there's a cap on the upside of that value. It's callable, okay? Or maybe there's a cap on the interest that could be paid. All right, so remember, no free lunch. Again, we're going to plant the seeds all 2 for 1, folks. 2 for 1, because we will cover this in bonds as well as in derivatives. All right, let's take a look at this excellent example. We've got 30-year fixed rate residential mortgage. Absent any other information, as a general rule, you're expecting, as I mentioned earlier, for this to be amortizing debt. Okay, amortizing. It could be non-amortizing, interest only, and then all the principal gets repaid at one point in time. But unless you're told otherwise, when you see mortgage, general rule, you think amortizing, okay, absent any other information. But it could be non-amortizing, which means interest only, but they'd have to specify that all the principal's repaid at maturity. Okay, if it's amortizing, the cash flow that's going to be received each period is going to be principal and interest. Okay, so as the cash flow that you receive, as the cash flow received goes up, your reinvestment risk, you have more cash each period to reinvest, your reinvestment risk goes up. Okay, but the good news is credit risk goes down, because it's not like you got to wait, theoretically, 30 years. Hopefully, that homeowner then has set aside enough money to pay off that debt. Okay, so there's less credit risk because the homeowner's paying off the principal on that loan little by little, versus a bond issued by a corporation, a 10, 20, 30-year bond. How do I know that company's going to be around 10, 20, or 30 years, whatever it is? to pay off that debt. All right, so the home costs $500,000. All right, so how are we financing the acquisition of this house? All right, $400,000 is debt. Where did we get the rest of the money from? Well, then 500 minus the 500, and that's an ugly E, that was equity. 500 value of the house minus 400, that's borrowed. The other 100 is coming from equity, our own funds. All righty, so the present value of this loan, 400,000, dropping to zeros. Now, it's 360 months, 30 years, but if we're making our payments monthly, if it's monthly pay, then the 30 times 12 months per year, 360 payments. Okay, now your interest rate, 3.5, but we got to divide that by 12. We want consistency. What's my monthly rate? Okay, so take your 3.5 divided by 12. 0.291667%. That's a percent, folks. All right, so that we need consistency monthly. All righty, now we're solving for, hey, what's going to be our payment? What's going to be our payment? So now our payment, 1796.18, 1796.18. Okay, so that is our monthly payment. And every time you make a payment, you got to separate the principal versus the interest. All right, so payment number one, let's do it. You take the initial carrying value of the debt. All right, we're going to subtract that from our payment, and the balance is the principal. So payment number one, and that should be 0.18. Sorry about that, folks. 1796.18. Initial carrying value of the liability, 400,000. We haven't made any payments yet. So the initial carrying value, 400,000, times 3.5 over 12. How much of that first payment is for interest? Most of it, 1166.67. The balance is principal repayment, 629.5. Okay, second payment. Payment number two, no change, 1796.18. Now the carrying value of the liability has gone down. Okay, so now it's 400,000 minus the first payment towards interest, 629.56. 629.5. That is now the carrying value of the liability at the beginning of the second month. Multiply that by 3.5 over 12, your monthly rate, 1164.83, 1164.83. So notice the payment towards interest went down. So that means what we're allocating towards principal went up. The second principal payment, 631.35, and so on and so on. Okay, this is our amortization spreadsheet. You could do this over all 360 months, okay? Now, let's say we calculate the interest and principal payment. All right, let's say they tell you we've made 356 payments have been made, okay? So the total number of payments, 30-year, 12 months per year, we're expecting 360 payments, okay? Let's say payments made to date. Payments made to date. We've made 356 payments. Let's say the number of payments remaining is therefore 4. Okay, the number of payments remaining, 4. Let's try to find what would be the value of this debt with 4 payments remaining, because you know we're not going to do a whole amortization schedule, right? So with 4 payments remaining, what's the balance? Okay, the principal balance, the present value of that debt. You ready? So we've got how many? What's our payment? 1796.18. What's the number of payments remaining? 4. And I'm sorry about that, folks. That's 1796.18. Our interest rate again was 3.5 divided by 12. Remember, that's expressed as a percentage. What is the present value? What is our loan balance? 7132.63. 7132.63. 7132.63. So you don't have to do that whole amortization schedule. Tell me the total number of payments that are due. Tell me the payments that have been made to date. Tell me the payments that are remaining. Once you know the payments that are remaining, tell me what the payment is, tell me what the interest rate is, which is generally fixed, right? Unless they tell you otherwise, it's fixed rate debt, and that'll tell you the present value of the debt. Okay, the principal balance after 356 payments have been made. Okay, so there's 4 payments remaining. So after 356 payments, present value of the debt, 7132. All righty. Now, compared to a bullet bond, all principal repaid at maturity. Okay. So with a bullet bond, there's good news, bad news. The good news is you have less reinvestment risk over the life of this loan. Why? Because every payment is coupon only. It's not coupon plus principal. So you have lower reinvestment risk, but you have higher credit risk. How do we know this homeowner 30 years from now, 360 months from now, is going to set aside enough money to repay that entire $400,000? With an amortizing bond, again, good news, bad news. When it's amortizing, your reinvestment risk is higher because every payment is coupon and principal. So there's more cash to reinvest every month. But your credit risk goes down because you're going to require this homeowner to pay off that loan little by little each month, okay, over the next 30 years. Okay, so compared to a bullet bond, an otherwise identical amortizing bond would have the lower credit risk. Okay, the bullet bond, because all the principal has to be repaid at maturity, has higher credit risk. The amortizing bond, lower credit risk. But the amortizing bond has higher reinvestment risk, and it has more cash flows. Okay, so good news, bad news. All right, calculate the periodic payment and the interest and principal components of the first payment for a fully amortizing bond based on the following. All right, so we got a loan amount of $10 million. So the first thing we got to do is find our interest payment. So present value, $10 million. We'll put all the zeros in there. Number of payments, 5 years. How are we paying this? Semi-annual. So N 5 times 2, we got 10 payments. Now your interest rate, we need consistency. You got to take that 2.75, we got to divide it by 2. We need the semi-annual rate. That's 1.375%. Solve for your payment, $1,077,173.65 to be exact. Okay, payment number 1. Payment number 1, how much of that is going to be for interest versus principal repayment? So we take the beginning carrying value of the liability. We haven't paid off anything yet, $10 million. Multiply that by your interest rate, 2.75 divided by 2, semi-annual. Our first payment, how much is towards interest? $137,500. $137,500. So how much is for principal? $939,673.65. Okay. Payment number 2. For payment number 2, we got the same payment. $1,077,173.65. But now the carrying value of the liability, $10 million. Minus the principal payment, $939, minus $939,673.65. So the beginning carrying value, $9,060,000, $9,060,000, $326.35. Multiply that by the interest rate, 2.75 divided by 2. How much of that is for interest on that second payment? That would be $124,579, approximately 49. That's how much is going to be for interest. The balance would be principal repayment. That would be $952,594.16. Okay, so the amount allocated towards interest is going down. The amount allocated towards principal is going up. Why is the interest amount going down? As the carrying value of the liability goes down, the portion allocated towards interest goes with it. Okay, so again, as the carrying value of the liability goes down, as the carrying value, here's your initial interest payment. As the interest payment goes down, the portion allocated towards interest, the interest allocation goes down. And if that goes down, the principal goes up. Remember, your monthly payment, no change. Okay, your monthly payment, no change. Alrighty. And don't forget, folks, in accounting, financial statement analysis, whenever you repay a loan, make sure you allocate the portion towards principal repayment as financing outflow, the portion allocated towards interest, US GAAP operating outflow, IFRS operating or financing.